I didn't plan to sit alone. I'd been assigned a seat, table 9, near the band. But when I got there, every chair except mine was already taken by couples who looked like they belonged. Someone's laughter floated over the clinking of glasses, a high, looping sound that felt like it came from another world. I kept my head down, straightening my tie that didn't sit right, and pretending to read the menu card again and again. I was my sister's brother, not a guest that mattered. Weddings do that. Magnify where you stand in life. Everyone in love makes you feel like you're not. The band was tuning, people were moving, and I had that familiar, quiet ache of being extra. The kind that doesn't hurt, not exactly, it just makes you small. I checked my phone even though no one was texting me. An unsent draft stared back. You'd laugh at this. But there was no one to send it to. When I looked up, she was there, standing near the drink table, a glass of something pale in her hand, mid-40s maybe. Not wedding glamorous, just clean, composed, real. Her hair was pinned low, a few strands loose near her face, and she had that kind of posture people carry when they've learned not to need attention. She caught me looking. Not long enough to embarrass either of us, but long enough to mark it. I looked away first. The next time I saw her it was because she was walking toward me. I tried to look occupied, folding and refolding my napkin into some kind of shape, but my hands gave me away. Mind if I sit here? She asked. Her voice wasn't flirtatious. More like she was trying to escape somewhere too.
Sure.
Yeah. I shifted my water glass so she'd have space. She sat, crossing her legs slowly, setting her drink down. We didn't speak for a while. Just the sound of the room, the low hum of conversations, the clinking, someone testing the mic. Finally, she glanced around and said, half under her breath, "You'd think there'd be at least one table for the ones who came alone." I smiled. Wes, that'd be bad for photos. That made her laugh, short, real. She looked at me then, properly. "You're the groom's side, the bride's," I said. "Brother." She nodded, and something softened in her expression. "I'm his aunt. Second marriage." We both paused, trying to connect the family web in our heads. "You're, on your own tonight?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes flicked toward the dance floor where a man was dancing too enthusiastically. "Divorced," she said. Then, almost with a shrug, "It's fine." I nodded, but the silence afterward was strange, not empty, just aware. The first slow song started. Couples began to rise. She tapped her glass, watching them. "Looks like we're the last table left sitting." I laughed quietly. "At least it's consistent." She smiled. Small, hidden, but there. And then she said it so casually it almost didn't land right away. "Act like you're with me. My ex just walked in." I blinked. "What?" She leaned a little closer, still smiling, eyes not leaving the crowd. "Just go with it. Saves me from explaining." Her hand brushed my arm as she reached for her glass. Light, quick, but my pulse caught anyway. I looked at her again. This woman who didn't owe me a word, and realized I'd forgotten about the cold food. The empty chair beside me, the phone in my pocket. "Okay," I said finally, voice lower than before. "I can do that." Her lips curved, almost a thank you. Then she turned toward the crowd, her fingers resting lightly near mine. And in that soft, deliberate distance between our hands, I could feel the beginning of something neither of us had planned for. The wedding ended hours ago, but I still hear the echo of the band in my head. That same slow song, the one that started it all. I don't remember leaving the reception together. It just happened. Two people walking toward the parking lot like it was a mutual decision. Maybe it was. She offered me a ride back to the hotel when I couldn't find my ride, share signal. "It's on my way," she said, even though it wasn't. Now, the sound of the wipers fills the silence between us. Her car smells faintly of rain and citrus. I glance at her hands on the wheel, steady, ringless, nails short, clean. The kind of hands that look like they've done real things, not just touch screens. "Thanks for this," I say. My voice sounds too careful. She smiles without looking over. "You looked stranded. Couldn't just leave the bride's brother like that." "That's kind," I say. "Most people just pretend not to see." The wipers click again. She exhales softly. "I know what that feels like. I want to ask when, or who did that to you. But the question feels too intimate for the space we're in, so I just nod." She drops me at the hotel entrance, but we don't move to end it. Rain drums on the windshield. I haven't done this in a while, she says suddenly. What? Talk to someone who doesn't already know how my story goes. There's a faint smile on her lips, but it doesn't reach her eyes. I find myself saying, you could tell me, if you want. She tilts her head, studying me like she's trying to decide if I mean it. Then she says, I was married for 20 years. We grew up together, I guess. Then one day I realized I'd stopped recognizing myself in his house. Her tone isn't bitter, just distant, like she's describing a weather pattern she once lived through. I'm sorry, I say, quietly. Don't be, she replies. Sometimes leaving is the only kind of honesty left. The sentence sits between us, heavy and clean. When she finally looks at me, I see the faint shimmer of reflection from the dashboard lights. And you? She asks. Anyone waiting on you? I laugh under my breath. No. I'm not that kind of interesting. She gives me a small, knowing smile. You're younger than I thought. I swallow, unsure what to do with that. Does that bother you? She shakes her head, turning back to the windshield. It's just strange. The last time I had a real conversation with someone your age, I was still pretending to be happy. Something in me tightens. Not desire, not yet, just awareness. We sit in silence for a long minute. I watch the rain sliding down the glass, catching the streetlight in slow gold streaks. My fingers twitch against my knee, wanting to reach out, to steady something that doesn't need saving. When she finally speaks again, it's soft enough to sound like a thought that escaped. You should go in before someone sees you here. I nod but don't move. The air feels different now. Charged, but not with words. Good night, she says. Good night. Our eyes meet once briefly. Then, as I open the door, she reaches across the console to hand me my jacket. Her fingers brush mine, light, deliberate. It's nothing, just a gesture. But it lands like a confession either of us is ready to name. Later, in bed, I replay that moment over and over. The sound of her voice. The warmth of her hand. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. She started showing up at the cafe. Not every day, just enough that I noticed the pattern. Mid-morning, always the same table near the window. She'd order green tea, open a book she rarely read, and when she saw me behind the counter, she'd give that small nod, the kind that said I see you, but not come over. I told myself it was coincidence, that she probably lived nearby. Still, I found myself wiping down her table twice as often as the others. Sometimes she'd stay after the rush and we'd talk, not about us, but about things that didn't ask for answers. The smell of rain. The way everyone pretends to be busy on Sundays. Once, I asked her if she missed being married. She didn't look up from her cup. Some days, she said. Mostly I miss being known. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. The silence stretched, not uncomfortable, just aware. Then the bell above the door rang. My sister. She spotted me instantly, grinning. So this is where you hide. I glanced toward the woman. She'd already turned slightly away, pretending to scroll through her phone. My sister leaned closer. She's pretty. You didn't tell me you were seeing someone. I'm not, I said too fast. My sister smirked. Right. Then she turned to her, all warmth and curiosity. Hi, I'm his sister. You must be. The woman smiled politely, that calm, practiced kind of smile that ends conversations before they start. Just a customer. She left soon after. The door closed with that small, final chime, and something in my chest tightened. That night I couldn't stop thinking about how quickly she'd withdrawn. How the space between us, once small enough to feel like breath, suddenly stretched into something cold. The next day I almost didn't go to work. When I finally did, she was there. Same table, same tea. She looked up when I passed. Your sister's nice, she said. Sorry about that, I murmured. She gets ideas. It's fine. A pause. We should probably be more careful. The way she said we made something flicker in me. A pulse, a question. Careful. I echoed. She met my eyes. People talk. There it was. The invisible line drawn right across the table. I wanted to tell her I didn't care. That this, whatever this was, felt too rare to ruin with distance. But I didn't. Instead, I refilled her cup. The steam rising between us like a boundary neither of us wanted but both understood. Her hand brushed mine when she reached for the handle. We both froze. For a moment, it felt like the whole cafe stopped. No clinking cups, no chatter, just that small, suspended breath between decision and regret. She didn't pull away, not right away. Just looked at me, eyes soft, searching, then, quietly, "You should go, before someone sees." Her voice was steady. Mine wasn't when I said, "Right." But as I turned, she said my name for the first time, barely above a whisper. And I swear it sounded like the start of a confession she didn't finish. It was late. The cafe had closed an hour ago, but I was still inside, wiping down the same counter for the third time. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound left. She was sitting by the window again, long after the other customers had gone. Her coat was draped over the chair, hair loose now, a little messier than usual. It made her look softer. "I didn't realize you were still here," I said, though I had. She smiled faintly. "You looked like you needed company." I wanted to ask what she meant by that, but the words caught somewhere in my throat. I just nodded and walked over, sliding into the chair across from her. The city outside was dark quiet. A bus passed, headlights flashing briefly across her face. "You're different lately," she said. "Different how?" She hesitated. "You've stopped pretending not to look at me." The words hit harder than I expected. My hand stilled on the table. "I didn't think you noticed," I said. "Oh, I noticed." She leaned back slightly, eyes steady on mine. "That's the problem." I exhaled slow. "Why is it a problem?" She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the rim of her mug, slow, deliberate. "Because you're kind. And kind people don't realize how much they give away until someone takes it." There it was, her line of defense, quiet but sharp. I leaned forward a little. "What if I'm giving it because I want to?" Her eyes flicked up, startled, and then softened again. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I might start believing you." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was thick, fragile. Every heartbeat felt too loud. She looked down almost to steady herself. "You remind me of something I lost," she said, "before everything got complicated." "What was it?" I asked. She smiled, sad and small. "Belief. That someone could see you exactly as you are. And not flinch." The words hung between us. I wanted to reach for her hand, to close the space, to prove her wrong about distance and damage. But I didn't move. Instead, I said quietly, "I don't flinch." She looked at me then. Really looked. And something unguarded flickered in her eyes. "You don't know what you're saying," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said. "But I know what I feel." That broke something open, not loudly, not visibly, just enough for both of us to know we'd crossed into dangerous air. She closed her eyes for a second, breathing in slow, like she was trying to steady the world. When she spoke again, her voice was softer, almost pleading. "You're young," she said. "You'll forget me." I shook my head. "I don't think I will." She stared at me for a long time. So long I almost thought she'd say it back, or move closer, or let something happen we couldn't take back. Instead, she whispered, "Don't make me the reason you get lost." Her words lighted like the end of a prayer. Gentle, final, unfinished. We sat there in the half-light, silence closing around us, both of us pretending not to hear the question trembling in the space between us. "What happens if we don't stop now?" She stopped coming. No message, no explanation, just absence, quiet and complete. The first day I told myself she was busy. The second, I wondered if she'd gotten sick. By the end of the week, I'd memorized every car that slowed outside the cafe window, waiting for one to be hers. None were. I tried to focus on work, steaming milk, calling orders, wiping down tables. But every movement felt slightly off, like a song played half a beat too slow. Then one afternoon, a man walked in, mid-40s, neat suit, familiar eyes. He scanned the cafe like he was looking for something he already expected not to find. He ordered tea. Her tea. "Do you know if she still comes here?" he asked when I handed it over. I froze. "Who?" He smiled faintly. "You do." I didn't answer. He nodded, like that was enough. "I'm her ex-husband." The words sat heavy in the air between us. "She mentioned you," I said finally. He seemed almost relieved. "That's something, I guess." He sipped his drink, then looked out the window. "She doesn't talk to me anymore. But I know her patterns. She disappears when she's scared." "Scared of what?" He looked at me then, not angry, not jealous, just tired. Off wanting something she's not supposed to. I had no answer for that. When he left, I stood by the counter for a long time, feeling something I couldn't name. Not anger, not sadness. Just suspended. The next week stretched thin. I stopped checking the door. I stopped looking at the window. I even stopped sitting at the table where she used to be. But one evening, after closing, I found her. Outside, sitting on the bench across the street. Coat wrapped around her, eyes fixed on nothing. I crossed over before I could think. You disappeared. She looked up slowly. I had to? Because of him. A pause. Because I sat beside her, not too close. You could have said something. I tried. She smiled faintly. Every morning, I tried to write a message. None of them sounded like the truth. We sat there, side by side, traffic humming around us. She didn't look at me, but I could feel the pull between us again. Smaller now, quieter, like something running out of light. I thought maybe, I said carefully, we could just talk. I can't, she whispered. Not until I stop wanting to. She stood up, and for a second, I thought she might reach for me. She didn't. She just tucked her hair behind her ear. A small nervous gesture I'd come to recognize. And said, "Take care of yourself." Then she left. I watched her cross the street, her silhouette swallowed by headlights and rain. When I got home, I opened my phone. Typed a message I didn't send. You don't have to disappear to be honest. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It was nearly closing time again when she walked in, no warning, no build-up. Just the sound of the door chime and her voice saying my name like it still belonged in her mouth. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined her. That my mind had finally started filling the silence she left. But then she smiled small and tired, and I knew she was real. "You're still here," she said. "I work here." I managed, because it was easier than saying I never left the place where you last looked at me. She glanced around. The cafe was empty, lights low. Rain pressed gently against the glass, steady, like it had been waiting too. "I wanted to see you," she said. "Just once more." "Once more," she nodded. To say something I should have said before I left. I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "Okay." She sat at her old table. I joined her, the same distance between us as before, though everything inside that space had changed. "I thought disappearing would make it easier," she said. "For both of us. But it didn't. I just kept wondering if you hated me." "I didn't," I said. "I just didn't understand. I was scared," she said simply. "Not of you. Of how much I wanted to stop pretending my life was already decided." Her voice cracked a little on the word wanted. I nodded slowly. "You don't have to apologize." "I'm not," she said, smiling faintly. "I just needed you to know it wasn't indifference." For a while, neither of us spoke. The coffee machine hummed softly in the background. I noticed how her hands trembled slightly, resting on the table. Without thinking, I reached over, not a grab, just enough to let my fingers touch the edge of hers. She didn't move away. "This is the part," she said, eyes still on our hands, "where we're supposed to decide something." I nodded. "Yeah. What do you think happens next?" I exhaled. "I don't know. Maybe we stop pretending that timing's the only thing that matters." She laughed quietly, a soft, almost disbelieving sound. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," I said. "But neither is walking away." Her eyes lifted to mine. There was no hesitation this time, no fear. Just exhaustion and relief. Two people who had finally stopped lying about what was true. "I'm not asking for anything," I said. "Just don't vanish again, not without saying goodbye." She reached out then, covering my hand fully. "I won't," she said. The world outside blurred into rainlight. Inside everything was still. I could have kissed her, I almost did. But instead I just stayed there, letting the moment exist, fragile, unperfected, real. When she finally stood, she smiled, small, but honest. "Okay," she said. That was all, no promises, no declarations. Just okay. And somehow it felt like the most complete thing we'd ever said to each other. It's been 8 months. The cafe feels different now, or maybe I do. The mornings are slower, quieter. The regulars still order the same things: 2 black coffees, 1 oat latte, 1 tea with honey. Her tea, She comes in most days now, though never exactly at the same time. Sometimes early, sometimes just before closing. Always that calm, deliberate pace, as if she's learned to move through life without hurrying for anyone. We don't talk about what happened that night. We don't need to. It's settled into something quieter. Not a secret, not a promise, just a rhythm that fits. When she walks in, I don't stop what I'm doing. I just nod, and she nods back. She takes her seat by the window, the same one where everything began, and I bring her the tea before she orders. Still remember, she says, every time. Still the same order, I answer. And for a second, it feels like a private language made up of small things no one else would notice. Sometimes, we close up together. She'll stay late, reading while I sweep. We don't fill the silence. It's comfortable now. The kind of quiet that belongs to people who've already said what mattered. The first few weeks after she came back, I thought I'd lost the spark, the rush of the beginning. But that wasn't it. What replaced it was steadier. The kind of affection that doesn't need to be named to be known. One night, we sat on the bench outside, the same one where she'd said goodbye months ago. The streetlights hummed softly above us, and she had her hands wrapped around a cup of tea. It's strange, she said, how something that started by pretending became the one thing that feels real. I looked at her, then at the faint steam rising from her cup. Maybe that's how most real things start, by accident. She smiled, eyes on the traffic lights, or by sitting alone until someone decides not to let you. The clock above the cafe door, the 47 p.m., the same time she once told me her marriage had ended. A small, strange detail she'd said half-jokingly months ago. This time she looked at it too, then back at me. Wes A47's not so bad anymore. I reached out, brushing her sleeve lightly, not claiming, not asking, just there. She turned her hand over, linking her fingers with mine, not tightly, just enough, no grand declarations, no talk of the future. Just two people who had already lost enough to know what to keep. In the mornings I still make her tea before she walks in, and sometimes when I pour it, I think of that night at the wedding. How a stranger asked me to act like I was with her. I didn't know it would turn out to be the most honest thing I'd ever done. Because now, when she walks through the door and meets my eyes, I don't have to act anymore. She's already with me.